It's almost as if winning an Oscar isn't as important as what you wore to do it or what
Yeah.
size you were when you won it. As humans, there is so much more about us that is interesting than the size or shape we are.
Mhm.
And I can't get my head around that now
Yeah.
that that's what we focus on, and that
Mhm.
that's what I spent so many years holding myself back from doing things and kind of not just putting myself out there. And people say to me, "Oh, your trauma made you stronger," and I'm like, "No, it didn't, but it did make me really funny."
Yeah.
Taking those little things and just being like, "Actually, it's a really stupid statement you've just made because trauma didn't make me stronger. Trauma almost broke me.
Yeah.
I was strong." Like,
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. I am delighted to have with us today Bon Allen. She is a body neutrality expert and coach who just did an incredible TED Talk that you can even stop this right now and listen to it and then come back to us because I highly recommend people tune into it. And it's called Body Neutrality is So Much More Than Neutral, which highlights a little bit about what we'll be talking today. But before we do, Bon, thank you so much for being here with us, with
thank you for
us,
having me.
with us, and all the other people that are around me,
Thank
but and the audience.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah.
a pleasure to be here.
And I was telling you, I wish that we recorded everything that you told me about what it's like to be going on to that TEDx stage and not having to be perfect and the impacts of body image, especially on so many of us living in our crazy world today. So, how much would you like to share about your story? Because I
Anything
want to
and
hear all
everything.
about your life, but I mean, we have probably, maybe not enough time to hear all about it, but I would love to hear more about you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, anything is game. I'm quite happy, quite an open book. I think for me, one of the things is in kind of putting myself out there and leading by example in terms of how we think about body image is about being authentic as a human being, because actually it kind of links in with the whole body image thing in that so many of us have spent so many years beating ourselves up because of inauthentic things we see on social media. So
Mm.
it's always been important to me. So I'm an open book. You can ask me any question, and I'll probably answer it as well as I can. But yeah, I kind of, I mean, it's hard to put in a nutshell me as a human being because I've had quite an interesting life.
Mm.
And I always just kind of sum it up and say, I'm a survivor of childhood trauma, worse than most could imagine. Went through infertility, went through having a disability and have health conditions ongoing. I probably shouldn't be here and definitely shouldn't be happy,
Mm.
but here I am. That's kind of my little. And I just think we all spend a lot of our lives thinking we've left things too late.
Mm.
And something I realized in my early 40s was it's never too late. It's just not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super glad you're here. I am glad you're here. And, the power and the conviction that you have in your message, I think from what you've been through, from the impact of the healing journey and like the awareness and pushing back
Yeah.
on what people experience so much pain. And, I find that how much of my life I lost to hiding because of fear of judgment on my body.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And you then beat yourself up for that time, but
Mhm.
one of my biggest lessons in everything is that time is gone, and beating yourself up for that time is just going to take away more time. So it's kind of bringing yourself to the here and now and forgiving yourself and saying, "Do you know what, that was okay,
Mm.
because I didn't know then what I know now, but now I do know it. So now let's do this." That's kind of, as my jumper says, why not?
Yeah.
Well, you can't see it's hidden,
No,
but
nice,
it's
nice,
why
nice.
not? And I say it in my talk. A lot of the time we have it thrown at us in the world. What's your why? But actually, why are you not asking yourself more often? Why not?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a more powerful question. So let go of whatever you've missed, but like you've still got time ahead. Like we all think when we're younger that 40 is old. Like, do you know what I mean? We all think that.
I
I'm
well, it is interesting, you know, and I also I lost I also went through a lot in my life, and I find that we connect, right? It's like the people
Yeah,
have gone through a light and they're on their healing journey, and then they want to bring all their friends and like shine the light on us because they're like realizing how much pain it's been. I actually didn't think I'd, and you said you shouldn't be here. I didn't
yeah,
think I should be here either.
no,
And like this conviction of this urgency to help people to live and to let go of all the things that are causing them to hold themselves back. Like I feel that from you, and your delivery of your TEDx talk was not only a powerful message, but I'm like, I want to hang out with you immediately. Right? I said, oh my God, it's like you like you want to come hang out with me on my crazy channel, and for you to say yes, I'm like, yes, amazing, because I just want more Bon in my life, and
oh.
it's so nice to be around you while you're also creating such a deep and profound movement. Can you share like what led you to kind of change your perspective on all of this?
Yeah, I spent so much of my life, like literally, even in the last. This is another thing I always want to acknowledge is we talk about healing, and I think a lot of the time we feel like we must do that and then we'll be all right. Healing is the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like it's not something you're done with. And even for me, in the last sort of couple of years, and even this year, like I've learned some stuff that I had never considered before, and it's changed the way I think about things. And like it's just that thing, we just it's a journey that we're on for the rest of our lives. But for me, for most of my life, I was always kind of held to a standard for other people. And I very much lived in that kind of trying to live up to that and be that perfect person. What does that person want me to be? And I think we do a lot of that. We kind of look out at society and those around us and what they're demanding of us, and we mold ourselves to fit that.
Hmm.
And I think I felt more uncomfortable in that than I ever did in my body. And it was only as I kind of started to separate the two and understand that I needed to be comfortable with me, actually just be me. Who am I in amongst all of this? That I found a lot more peace with stuff. And, as I sort of say to people often, body image, I think we have been taught to put so much into it. Like it's all we ever hear about. In my talk, I say it's almost as if winning an Oscar isn't as important as what you wore to do it or what
Yeah.
size you were when you won it. As humans, there is so much more about us that is interesting than the size or shape we are.
Hmm.
And I can't get my head around that now,
Yeah.
that that's what we focus on, and
Hmm.
that's what I spent so many years holding myself back from doing things and kind of not just putting myself out there. And it's not a case of you then have to become this big person who'll do whatever and put yourself wherever. I am probably one of the world's worst introverts, and people find it really hard to believe,
Yeah.
but I genuinely am. I just feel really passionately about more people feeling empowered to just be themselves.
Yeah.
And because of the journey that I've been on and what I've learned, I don't care what other people are thinking about me. So I'm in a
Hmm.
good place to say it. But I'm happiest when I'm around dogs.
Yeah.
Like today, I went to a meetup I have a specific breed of dog, and we have regular meetups of those.
What
And I
kind of
went
breed is this?
to the Chow Chow.
Chow Chow. Oh, I've seen your Chow
Yes.
Chow actually in your talk.
Yes.
I think in your dating profile,
It was.
portion of your talk. Yeah.
Yes, I put me and him reenacted ET, that was
Yeah.
it. And I went to one of those meetups today, and someone asked me about, the humans that were there, and I was like, "Oh, I can't remember what their name was,
That is
or
so funny.
I remember the
That is
dog."
really funny. Yeah.
And it's those are great because 'cause they're comfort. Like, we're all there because we love the dogs, and there's no pressure. So I think, like, we have to really feel comfortable to be ourselves, and it doesn't actually matter if you're a very introverted person. You haven't suddenly got to feel like you want to put yourself out there. It could just be that you start to live life in a way that is right for you, and that
Mm.
might be quietly and gently. You haven't got to go and get up on a stage. That was just the right thing for me. But actually, there's probably a lot of joy to be got from living your life gently or however you want to do it.
That's so beautiful. It's really interesting because we're really aligning with like that's been my most recent realization in my own life.
Yeah.
Because I often feel that a lot of us are living in not only a culture that's superficial and BS. I share
Yeah.
I get really angry when I see diet culture commercials because they are preying on people's vulnerabilities for this social construct that's making people feel shame and guilt for being who they are in a body. And when we don't shame people into doing things that are better for them, right? That often is just reducing their own self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, and potentially leading to further isolation and unfortunately some people taking their own lives because they so much distress. And so to have you even say like first awareness, let's step back and to challenge what is so ubiquitous in our society today, and then realizing it's all superficial BS, like free to be you,
Yeah. Yeah.
free to be you. And people will resonate. So let's I'd love to kind of repeat some things that, like I said, this whole discussion, I wish everybody was here for, so we'll try to invite you to some of it. But just that I'll be happy when, right? So many people are trying to lose weight thinking I'll be happy when.
Yeah. I now call it market research, but I spent 20 odd years dieting. It's
Yeah.
only market research because I now work in this area. But like
Mhm.
you can name a diet and I have done it. I had tried everything, and it was because it was just thrown at me constantly. Here's Sandra, she lost, 100 pounds, and now she's happier than she's ever been. And but you never see Sandra 2 years down the line. Is she still happy? Did she maintain that? We don't ever really see that.
Yeah.
And I beat myself up, and over those 20 years, I actually gained like I'm trying to do it in pounds because you lovely Americans do it in pounds and not
Mhm.
stone. So I'm doing maths in my head here, and I'm not good
You
at
can
math.
say it in stone and then we'll just send them to Google and do that
But
like little you're all
I'm
high achievers, just go Google and calculate it, all right? So
so I'm
say it
pretty
out.
certain
Say it.
I gained about 150 pounds over those 20 years. Like I didn't actually lose anything.
Yeah.
And what I lost actually was myself. Like I completely lost myself in that process of.
Mhm.
And people look back at photos of themselves when they're younger and go, "Oh, I was happy then." You can have those feelings again, and you don't have to have that exact same body.
Yeah.
You actually just have to connect with yourself where you're at. And often when we're younger, we're not holding ourselves in the same space that we do as we start to let the weight of the world's judgment. I say to most people, the problem is not weight itself, it's the weight of judgment of yourself and others that is kind of weighing you down. So yeah, I spent all that time just judging myself and I find it really interesting because since I made the decision sort of 5 years ago to do it differently and realized it doesn't matter what I look like in my 40s or whatever. Actually, how am I going to move around when I'm older? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I said at my TED talk, I want to get
Uh-huh.
up to no end of mischief.
Yeah.
How am I going to achieve that? And that is by taking care of myself. But it hasn't got to be an overnight thing. And so I was like, okay, I was very, very overweight. I was super morbidly obese. How am I going to tackle this? I didn't get this way. I didn't go to bed one night and then wake up the next morning and go, Jesus, look
Mhm.
like the Stay Puft Man. It was a
Mhm.
gradual process. So actually, I can make it a gradual process. And there are things I've learned along the way that make it, I highly recommend it because I think we get so caught up in I must lose the weight quickly.
Yeah.
And, I have very little loose skin at all. And I've lost I like to say an influencer and a half because I
Mm.
hate acknowledging how much it is, because to me, the number doesn't matter.
That is
So I
so funny though. I
I
love
do it in numbers of influencers. And so because it's been because it's been a gradual process, my skin and it's actually quite impressive in itself because I'm over 40, so my skin's elasticity is changing. I'm in that age group where it does, but because I'm doing it slowly, my skin hasn't suddenly gone, "Oh no, where'd all that fat go?
Mm.
Like, what am I going to do?" But also I've stuck at it. My previous record was like 6 weeks on a diet before I'd had enough and just, didn't want to do it anymore. This is 5 years down the line. And not only am I still doing the stuff, I'm progressing in it. And I think it's that thing of we think we should be happy when we reach X size or shape. And actually, you can be happy every day along the way, as you see yourself continuously make good choices, you'll have bad days that won't feel as good, but they won't feel as bad because the good days are there, and you kind of have this balance rather than I must stick rigidly to this plan that is then I'm just going to be happy at the end. And particularly if you are unfit as such, or like I do like to say, naturally most people who are carrying too much weight are probably really strong and don't realize it because you've been carrying around that
Yeah.
weight all that time. And so that would be something I would encourage people to have more confidence in themselves to get in a gym if that's where they want to go, because you already can lift heavy. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of every day you go and do something for yourself, you're getting fitter, you're getting stronger. Like I now jokingly say, I'm just going to get hotter and fitter and stronger as I get older.
Yeah.
It's just a commitment I've made. I haven't got to think, oh, should I look like this by this age? I actually sit there and think, oh, I wonder what I will look like when I'm much older rather than now, because it's that
Mm.
kind of, this is for life. It always is, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the functional shift. Like, I think a lot of times people look at the outcome being weight loss. And just to recap, like, the only weight you should lose is the weight of other people's judgment and the weight of diet culture bullshit. And
Yeah.
some people might, based off of functional changes and habit changes, might lose weight but focusing on that, I find, and I'm curious to know how this internal self-talk might have shifted in your own head, but when it comes to weight loss, like diet culture weights by, like I was saying before, shaming people, and like
Yeah.
then you restrict and like have lower self-worth as you're focusing on like just what's wrong with you. And for me with anorexia, it was like I was getting championed actually for everything that were eating disorder behaviors, for what was in
Yeah.
my cart, what foods my brain would allow me to eat, which was like, all right, they are complimenting me on an eating disorder that is literally taking my life, how much
Yeah.
I would move, right? Like I was being championed for my discipline, like the heartache, the isolation, and when eh, sometimes people could tell maybe something wasn't right, sometimes people couldn't, and even now going to the gym and still knowing I'm not completely recovered from an eating disorder, and people comment, people feel free reign to come and talk to me about my what they think of my body and what they think
Yeah.
about my running, and even
Yeah.
if I try to create the boundary of being like that's not helpful for me, I'm just trying to be self-compassionate and uh, not kill myself from eating disorder here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and knowing the deep pain of when I was uh, v- just very ill medically, how lonely that felt because I was getting, oh, I'll be happy when I'm at this certain weight. And there was never a weight low enough to be that invisible. Like I was craving invisibility. And the looks I got at some points of my eating disorder were looks of disgust,
Yeah.
of worry. Some people really glorify anorexia. And like we're
Yes.
glorifying anorexia and we're shaming other eating disorders. Like none of that actually makes any sense.
No. And the thing is, something you just said there, we can make ourselves invisible for a bit, and we don't have to do it in ways that hurt us. We can actually just go, I need to shut out all the other noise for a bit and actually
Yeah.
focus on me. Where am I at? How do I feel? What do I really need?
Mhm.
Like, how would I talk to a friend? Like, I know it
Yeah.
sounds really to coin any. Are we allowed to swear on here?
You are. You're allowed
I
to
have a
just show up
terrible
your
mouth.
authentic self.
This is going to sound really English, so congratulations. Here we go. That's a bit of English swearing. This is going to sound really wank. That's a phrase we have.
Mhm.
But, like, how would you speak to a friend? Like, how would you speak
Mhm.
to a friend who's going through what you are feeling? That's how you should be talking to yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and recognize what is it in you that makes you feel so terrible about yourself. Why don't you like you? And often when you unpick it, you'll find there's a certain level of conditioning in there. It could come from childhood, it could come from teenage experiences, could come from adult experiences. um there will be bits you can pick out that you'll be like, oh, okay, that's where that came. That, and when you look at those, you can go, okay, well, that's not part of my life anymore. Like, I'm not that person, or that person isn't in my life, and I don't need to hold that belief about myself, because why am I still doing that? Obviously there are other elements for me. Obviously, not being able to have children, I was very angry at my body. Like, why couldn't it do that? It's odd because now I'm older, I can recognize I was conditioned to believe my sole purpose was to have
Mm,
children and that I would never be happy if I didn't. And I found it quite shocking how very happy I am with that.
mhm,
And you just
mhm.
think I'm never going to be happy because I haven't achieved that thing that women are supposed to do.
Yeah. Mhm,
As again, I think I say it in my TED talk, I don't piss myself on a trampoline. My
mhm.
boobs are still in a great place on my chest and not around my knees.
That was where the spaniel picture comes in. So
Look like
people
a
that
pair of spaniel's ears.
yeah, so people need to
It
watch the TED Talk so they can laugh with us here.
but yeah, I think there's so much we get fed into us that is this is how you should be, this is who you should be.
Mm,
And actually let yourself disappear for a bit. Like literally just let yourself quietly spend time just going over stuff and figuring out what's right for you. I've done it again this year. I've done it over the years, little bits, but never enough. And in the last year, stuff happened that kind of really forced me. And someone actually said to me back in January, who didn't know me that well at the time, but was getting to know me, said, "You don't have to be at a 10 out of 10, you know. You haven't got to be perfect." And no one had ever said that. And it actually kind of threw me for a loop, and
mm.
for a little while, I was really struggled with that whole thing of, "What do you mean?" I've only ever had to hold my standards up to this. But it kind of started at more of a path of kind of just sitting and going, "Okay, what do I want? Like, why am I holding myself to this standard for everyone else? This is my life."
It's,
So, yeah.
it's interesting, how realizing that and leaning into it, like, I'm former military, we say embrace the suck. Right,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
actually, like, realizing that I don't have to be perfect, like, I was just feeling grief and pain in my heart, like, because, like, in a way that's necessary, right? Like, because you at some point thought you had to be perfect, right? That your worth was dependent on having kids, like, you needed to be a certain size in order to fill in the blanks, right? And just that deep inner knowing of, like, how much I relate and also, like, how many years we spent believing that. Letting it go is beautiful, and that process in between is
Yeah.
can be painful,
Oh,
and
yeah.
also, like, on the other side, it's this weight, this freedom of, like, now that I don't have to be perfect, I can be.
Yeah. And it's that thing of, as humans, a lot of what we do in the world and in life is because we don't like to feel pain,
Yeah.
emotional, physical, whatever. But actually, if you don't ever feel it, you're not going to really feel the happiness, like to the extent that you can. The
Yeah.
joy, all those other things are not going to hit the same. And it's not that you should go out and seek ways to feel crappy on purpose, but life is going to throw a lot of rubbish at you. And it's whether or not you learn to just go with that and just let it kind of be that and understand this is shit. I can't change it.
Mhm.
It is what it is. I need to understand what I feel about it. It's okay to feel rubbish about it. It's not forever. That's the one thing that we have to remember is every single thing that happens is not forever. Like, and if there are changes that happen in our lives that are permanent, we will adapt over time. We will learn how that fits within what our life is supposed to be. And I think, yeah, just accepting that it is part of our life. Like we are the happy ever after is bullshit. It's been
Yep.
sold to
Mhm.
us. It's
Yeah.
been sold to us.
Yeah.
You know, I am known because I am probably one of very few females who hates Disney. I
Oh,
just think it's done women a disservice for years because
yeah.
and the film industry, we think we're going to find the perfect whoever and live happily
Yeah.
ever after. And
Yeah.
when we do the housework, birds are going to come and sit on our arms and we'll sing. That's not real life. Real life is predominantly difficult. It's just how we choose to find joy in it and how we choose to be comfortable in ourselves that means the tough stuff feels less tough.
It's fascinating too. I watched a documentary, I think it's called Fatitude actually, that dissected Disney and its poor portrayal of women and like how it always portrayed the evil people as being people of higher weight and like just like pick this apart in ways I was like,
Yep.
oh. And even when you're talking about kids, like I don't have kids, people constantly am asking me about when are you gonna you'll find the one. I'm like, my ex-boyfriend died in 2016 and I, have a lot of trauma around intimacy that I am not interested, right? And I'm like, so like people really will just cross boundaries and like, giving up the need to be in a partnership or like a need to fit this anything, right? Just being you, honoring what you need, not creating a void that's not there for yourself and learning to accept what is. And what you said about just honoring the full spectrum of emotions for me, like I realized the eating disorder to me was like to numb out the pain, but it numbed out like joy, numbed out love. It had a hard time attaching to people. Like it just numbing out all those things. It just felt like my life is so meaningless because can't feel anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and you just repeat that ongoing because that's the space that feels safe for you in that moment. And when you step out of it, it's going to be really scary.
Yeah.
Like, feeling stuff is super scary, going through it is super scary. So this year, earlier in so I had 2 chow chows, and earlier this year, one of my chow chows got sick.
Mm.
He was only 3. He had been my absolute rock through 3 of the shittest years I've had in a long time, and he was my one constant, and we know this when we go through stuff, if you've got something that is there as a constant, that's, a really important thing. And he got sick, and it was a sickness that is terminal in dogs. He should have had 2 years, and within 10 weeks he was gone. And it was the first time in my life that I fell into a process, a rubbish thing happening, and I went, "How do I do this for me?" Because in the past, I'd always managed, and it's the same with things like eating disorders. We're almost managing ourselves for other people. Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
how do I need to be for everyone else? And this time around, I just went, okay, how am I going to do this for me and him? Like, what am I going to do? And I shared some of the process on social media. It was really important to me to like talk about it because I think there is this thing of, everybody has to get married and do all this stuff, but what if the one love of your life is a dog? Like, not in a Jerry Springer kind of way. I mean, in a genuinely lovely
I used to
relationship.
watch that a lot, but
Remember the man who married his horse?
yeah.
It was not
Mhm.
me. This was just
Mhm.
genuinely, I had a great dog and he was amazing. And it's, how do you kind of lean into that process for you? And it was the first time. And it was very difficult, very painful, and still is a very sad thing. But actually, within that process, for the first time in my life, I didn't operate from fight or flight. I slowed down and literally was just like, when people say you need to live for now, what they don't mean is do everything all of a sudden. What they mean is slow down, take a breath, be in this moment right here, and just take the moment to look at what you need here and now. And I think we should apply that to so much of our lives. And in that time, I did all that just for me. And I gave myself space. And you might lose some friends, relationships with some people might change. It's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Like, as much as it can feel like it is, as you come out the other side of whatever bit you're going through, you'll start to see, oh, that actually, that was a good thing because now I have more space for me, and I feel stronger, and I feel better in myself. And as awful as it was to go through that, I was supposed to relaunch some coaching stuff just as he got sick, and I didn't. And I find it really interesting because I was upset at the time because I was really excited about it. Actually, in the time since where I've had that peace and stuff, I've learned so much more that I can now take forward when I do
Wow.
relaunch
Yeah.
not have had there. And so you just have to think about, but also, I mean, his story was incredible. I thought he was just an awesome dog because he was my dog. And it turned out he wasn't some Insta famous dog either, because I used to get
Mhm.
annoyed that people wanted to see him on social media and
Mhm.
why don't you want to look at me?
That's hilarious. Mhm.
But it turned out that actually he had, like, impacted people all over the world, and all these, and even now I have people still message saying, "I never met him, but from
Mhm.
videos I'd seen or this or that, he really." So it taught me a lot about the impact that one individual can have without even realizing as well,
Wow.
and how we're just not aware, and we think we know. We think in our
Mm.
little bubble, "Oh, I'm this terrible human who's just not good enough for anyone."
Yeah.
But actually, he kind of sums this up actually, because he was never afraid to be himself.
Mm.
He was obviously, dogs aren't they? They are dogs. He was an absolute dickhead, but he just embraced. Chow chows are very aloof. They're not dog like at all. They are very much like giant cats. and you see them, out there on social media, and everybody thinks they're teddy bears, and they're not. They'd rather you left them alone, and they'll come and see you when they want something,
Mhm.
and that's why I loved him. But he lived in that. He didn't, they don't feel like, "Oh, I must be that cuddly thing that the humans all want to touch because I look really cute." They are just like, "Listen, I'm a chow chow. If you think you're coming over to give me a cuddle, you can get lost.
Mm,
I'm just gonna do this or whatever." And it made me really engage with that side of him, and I realized as humans, we should do that. We should be saying, "This is me." Like, there's no discussion around who I need to be for you. This is who I am. And as long as you're not hurting other people, you should never have fear around that. You should
yeah.
just be you.
Yeah, I'm sorry you lost this amazing dog.
Yeah.
So I
Incredible.
I my heart goes out in also embracing the messages that he taught many of us. Most people probably know my dog Reese more than they know me. So I'm sharing with you also
Yeah.
the love of my life, the man in my life. And that what hit me really hard in addition to the loss of your amazing dog is that not knowing the impact that that dog was having on the lives of other people. There was times recently, I tell my story frequently of like, I was suicidal in oral surgery, but like that didn't just go away. Just like it's easier for me to talk about when I was suicidal, back then.
Yes, yeah.
Um, but like the challenges didn't just vaporize, right? And sometimes people hit me in my DMs on my darkest days, and like not realizing that their comments were reaching me at a time I really need to hear it. And I wanted to offer to those people who often question, like, do I matter? Does my presence on earth matter? Like, you matter way more than you know.
You'll never know it. We never, because as humans, I weird people out a bit because I will message a friend and say, "I
Mhm.
really appreciate you. I hope you know that." And
Yeah.
it's something we don't do enough as humans. We don't tell people. When they're suddenly gone, we'll then say, "Oh, I loved them so much."
Yeah.
Don't get obsessed, not obsessive, that's the wrong word, but we don't over egg it. We don't say, "I think you're incredible." Like, and I will say to someone, "I think you're incredible what you've achieved
Mhm.
in your life," because we don't, and so people don't know. But every single human being on this planet has value and has worth. You just might never know just how much of an impact you've made on others until you're no longer here.
Mm.
And that's the beauty of being human, is just live a good life. You don't need to know what you're achieving for anyone else, because as long as you're living that good life and doing what is right for you, it'll be having an impact. And you just have to trust that
Mm.
it is. Sometimes you might get to see it. Sometimes someone will send you a message and say, "Do you know, that really meant something to me." When my dog was poorly, he had to have a feeding tube fitted to feed him because we thought he was just a bit fed up, and if we got some calories into him, he might improve a bit. So that was a plan for a few weeks. And after he passed, this might make me tearful, so I don't know why I started this story, but here we go. I'm
Mhm.
just going to be me.
Mhm.
I had a message from someone who said, "Thank you so much for sharing everything you did about the feeding tube and about your journey with him. My teenage son has autism and has a terminal illness and has a feeding tube fitted, and he can't relate to humans. But through your sharing of Wilson's journey and his passing, my son could connect with him, and he understands that it's okay to have a feeding tube because Wilson had one.
Oh,
And it's okay when we pass away, like, we're not gone, we will always be remembered." And I just think, in all of everything that I went through in that, I would never have expected that to be something somebody took from it.
wow.
Like, you just can't
Wow.
ever know. Like, you can't know what it's gonna be, what your gift to the world is. But again, I just think that's the beauty of being human beings, is we just have to trust that we are. Each and every one of us is a gift to the world. And I feel tearful saying that, because that means I'm acknowledging that I am too. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm hilarious, so I know what my gift is.
And it's
But
interesting because your willingness and your action of reaching out to people, and I invite everyone to pause this again. Think about who you want to reach out and show your appreciation to, because I find that as a person who at one point might not have thought they mattered. Like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but this is coming from me. And so
Yeah.
I'll speak for myself, but also acknowledge that often what we're offering to people is what we also needed, right? Like, we're realizing the pain of not having this, the detriments this causes. So I'm going to extend this to you
Yeah.
because I
It's
know
the
it
only reason I
makes,
do what I do is because I didn't see myself reflected in the fitness space. I didn't see myself there, and there was no one I could connect with. And so I went, actually, well, if there's no one, then I should be
yeah.
that person. And it's not about me. Like, I really don't. I often say, oh, if someone else could just be the face of what I do, I could just
Mm,
hide in the background and
mhm.
tell them what to say. It's not about me, the person. But there was a me that didn't think I had any value in that. There was a me who, like you, chose a day where I just never wanted to be seen again. And I was very nearly successful. And it is a miracle that I'm here. But that me didn't understand the world as I do now, and didn't understand that we are more than what other people demand of us and what society tells us we should be. Like, we just have to be brave enough to sit down and go, okay, who am I?
And let society be wrong about you. Like, there's so much in your TED Talk. I'm like, holy, and then I started following you around like on social media. I'm like, holy cow, like all this is amazing. You're absolutely amazing. Just the human that you are is amazing. So, you start your TEDx talk talking about marathoning, and one quote I love about you from your TEDx talk is talking about autoimmune because you're the only person that can kick your own ass. Right?
Yeah, I
So,
say, I always say that. So I have autoimmune conditions, and I do say it's because the only thing strong enough to kick my ass is me. Because, like, yeah, it's just another way of kind of accepting that that is. I mean, I don't want people to line up and prove that that's right or wrong. I'd fight you
yeah,
all, but
yeah.
it's kind of, yeah, just finding those. It's it's interesting because the way that I grew up was such a structured environment, very much so. And it was interesting because it's not something we usually see in the UK. So I grew up in what essentially you see a lot of extremist religion over in the US. We don't really
Mhm.
have that so much here, and I did grow up in that. So everything was kind of mapped out for me, and I was very much told, "This is who you are. This is what you're going to do with your life, and you will be this person." And then I married into a family whereby you're a child, then you do, college and university and all the rest of it, and then you have a career and you're a mother and you do this and you do that. And what's interesting is that that's never really been my life. And for many years, I kind of held shame about the fact that, oh, I've had several different jobs and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I find it interesting because I now proudly sit and go, oh yeah, I've done all these different things because I was trying to
Yeah,
figure out what do I want to do.
yeah,
And I
beautiful.
think we just as humans need to let go of the weight of shame as well as the weight of judgment. Kind of
Yeah.
just there is no shame in not knowing what you want to do. No one has their shit together.
Mm-mm,
That is an
mm-mm.
utter lie. Just gloriously waft through life figuring stuff out, because when you die, it's not going to matter what you did, how many different jobs you did. Like, none of that matters to anyone else. Like, it's just not important. What matters is, who were you as a human being? Did you live a good life? Did you treat other people well? Like, those are the only things that matter. And for those, it doesn't matter what size, shape, none of those things matter, and yet we put so much store in it.
It's such bull. I so deeply value your message and the bull that we're just talking about. Like, we're not going to take our bodies with us when we die, right? It's all this stuff. And there's that quote, like, people won't remember what you do, but they'll remember how you made them feel,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. And I just, yeah, I just think we don't know the end. Like, none of us are aware of that. And when the end happens, we don't know how much of all of this we take with us. Like, we have no way of knowing. So just focus on right now. Like, stop telling yourself that you need to be all these things because that's what society is saying you should be. And actually just do what makes you happy and okay with everything. Like, just do that. And live like, I mean, I always say I'm not a grown up, and I'm an adult, but I'm not a grown up. And I think some of it is I didn't really experience my childhood in the way I should have.
Hmm.
So I've put it into my adulthood, not in a way that I'm immature. I can be very grown up. In fact, I do have to tell people not to tell people I'm sensible sometimes because they won't believe them.
Yeah.
We lose that childlike wonder of stuff and
Mm,
we become adults and we have to be so serious.
yeah.
And I've had people say to me, "Oh, are you disappointed that in your TED talk you were like trying to be funny?" And I'm like, why is being funny making my value of my message less?
It
How
didn't. To me, I loved it.
But and this
Yeah.
is the thing, we
Yeah.
kind of think we have to
Yeah.
be grown-ups, we have to be sensible, we must do all
Yeah.
these things. There's no rule book. There's no
Yeah.
legal thing that says you must do all of this. So, you know, point at cows every time you see a cow in a field. There's a cow. When a
Mhm.
rainbow comes out,
Yeah.
like when the snow is on the ground, like all the things that we don't see every single day, value them. Here in the UK a couple of weeks ago, we had the Northern Lights, and we never get them.
Mm.
And I mean, the whole of Facebook in the UK, as you can imagine, the next day was covered in people's
Yeah.
horse. I'd seen them many times because Finland is kind of like a second home for me. I don't know why, but I just feel at peace there. And but it's just that aura, and every time I see them, I will feel the same. Like, how amazing is that? How beautiful is that? And we should be doing that not only about the things we see, but about other humans. How
Mm.
amazing are you? Like,
Yeah.
how good is it that you're sat here today
Yeah.
having this conversation? Like, and it is, I just find it incredible that we are still so focused on body image
Mhm.
and lifestyle and what we project when human beings are so interesting.
I agree. I woke
Like,
up this morning like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we get to talk from, like, how many miles away?"
I know.
But that also came, the realizations that you have there, it just is resonating with so deeply because I mean, like in the process of getting back in touch with, I used to be called Silly Jilly, like super goofy, and that was a huge coping skill for me. And when I lost it, it was because I was told it was immature. And
Yeah.
I held this professionalism and maturity that felt sickening to me because I want to be goofy. And I love Caesar Cervantes. Shout out to him because he
Yes.
is he creates this support group. They're very serious. He provides deeply meaningful, impactful feedback to people while also being goofy. And going into that group, I'm like, there's this lighthearted, and I just met his family, and there was so much just love, unconditional love. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, like that
And
exists. That
exactly. I mean,
exists.
he did teach me to lean into the funny more, like spending time with
Mm,
him. He was like, "You are funny. You should be doing this. You need to get your humor in there." You know, when I first wrote my TED talk, it was very serious
mm,
because that was what I believed it should be. And he was like, "Where is the funny in this? Like, why have you missed all that out? Because that's you." And kind
yeah.
of put it in there. And I think, I mean, I've always been fascinated by like humor and stuff like that. Growing up, like I said to you earlier, I had an auntie who had a severe learning disability, and you know, when I was young, I never really noticed it. She was just my auntie, and as I hit my teens and people started to act awkward around her, and I noticed it, I realised that making a joke will take that away. And it's such a great tool for just social comfort. And I do it a lot. Like people will say something about, "Oh, I'm so sorry this or that happened to you," and I will say something really flippant and
Hmm.
just take that away because you don't need to apologize for what, so you
Yeah.
didn't do it. When I was going through infertility and people would say, "Oh, have you had children?" I'd say, "I can't actually have them." And they'd be like, "I'm so sorry." And I'd be like, "Oh, it was your fault."
Oh.
Wondering what it was
Oh,
all
yeah.
this time. I couldn't get to the bottom of it. And it makes them think twice about, well, why have I just
Yeah.
apologized actually?
Mm,
And I do. I think humor is a really powerful tool in terms of coping with stuff. Like,
yeah.
just and people say to me, "Oh, your trauma made you stronger." And I'm like, "No, it didn't, but it did make me really funny."
Yeah.
Taking those little things and just being like, actually, it's a really stupid statement you've just made because trauma didn't make me stronger. Trauma almost broke me.
Yeah.
I was strong, like
Yeah.
that was it. And I think a lot of the time as well, when it comes to these situations, we try and look for meaning that almost makes the bad thing a good thing. The bad thing was always a good bad thing.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to say, "Oh, but you did." anything, and I struggled with this for a long time. I
Yeah.
struggled to be able to associate a good outcome with what had happened until I realized the good outcome was all on me. It was nothing to do with what happened. It was choices I made that then allowed that to be the outcome. So now I proudly say I went through all this stuff as a youngster and I never went down the route of drink, drugs. I struggled with my eating in my late teens and I struggled with my mental health massively in my late teens, early 20s. But I never went down that route. And it was because deep down I think I knew I didn't want to add to the
Yeah.
crap I already had to deal with, and it was a lot and I knew I had to find a way through it, but also I just never gave up on that either, and that was my choice.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so easy to give credit to other people, you know, well, so and so was nice to me, or so and so helped me, or actually ultimately if you've come out the other side, then it's you're the thing, you're the one. Like, just own it, not in an arrogant egotistical way, but just in
Yeah.
a, "Oh, yeah, I did that." And
Yeah.
then you'll start to see the value in you more as well.
Mm. I love it. And the strength when you're saying you're so strong, I love just kind of leaning into, allowing the society to be wrong about us and the things with the strength and you were talking about on your TED Talk, like I said, the marathon and the things that people get wrong about so many people. Can you share like what do people get wrong about you? And also like you're
So
saying do what
much.
makes you happy. So it's like, what do people get wrong about you and what are you doing that is true to you and makes you happy?
So, I mean, people have been wrong about me my whole life, from my birth parents onwards. You know, I was always told who I was, and it really wasn't who I was. People do make a lot of assumptions. And you know, even when I learned to walk again, I was told you'll be lucky if you do 5 kilometers. Like, just be happy with that. So that's where the marathon came from, because I was
Mm-hmm.
told you will never be able to do marathon distance, and I was like, never tell
Mm-hmm.
me never.
Yep.
Um, but people assume that because I'm still in a larger body now, it's smaller than it once was. But because I'm doing this in a slow way, people assume that I must be really unfit, that I must be really unhealthy, that I, eat really terribly. They'll make comments about eating fruit and veg. Um, and also because, I'm in my mid 40s, I don't have children, so I must be, some terribly bitter, awful person who, you know, couldn't, do that or doesn't have that in them. Yeah, there's lots of, assumptions are made, and they're just not right. I'm incredibly fit. I'm not afraid to say it. Not many people can deadlift 100,000 kilos in 10
No.
hours or pull a
No.
sled marathon
I think I
distance.
just pulled my back out thinking about this. Oh God.
Yeah, I did it so you don't have to.
Thank
Um,
you. My
and
authentic self is gonna decline the invitation if you the marathon I would take up with you, but the deadlifting, no thanks.
but yeah, so there's that assumption, and it makes you afraid to then kind of acknowledge things about you. So I get inbox messages all the time saying, "But you're fat," and I say, "Congratulations, your eyes work." And what else? I had someone who commented on a video of me running that said, "Oh, congratulations! Now they need to fill in the potholes there, um, like holes in the road." And I just said, "Well, you don't know, because where I was running, the council never fills in the holes in the road, so that's not going to happen." And I say, the thing is, the people making these comments, I haven't actually come across one yet that I wanted to sleep with or spend the rest of my life with. So they don't really bother me in that way.
Yeah.
And when you look at it that way, someone did say something. I don't know if I can repeat it on here once, but someone did say something to me about people judging you on your weight. And it was quite crass. I'll say it and then you can always bleep it out. But she said the only time a man should be worried about how much I weigh is if I'm sitting on his face.
Mm.
And I know it sounds terrible, but actually, like,
It's yeah, not to
kind of
I thought
true.
you were gonna say something much worse. We're gonna
Oh,
keep
that's
that
good.
in and it's true. And to the point of the contrary, right? When people assume that I'm well when just
Yeah.
based off of how I look, right? And like um
Yeah, there is an assumption that slim means fit, healthy, well,
yeah,
like, you must have A star health all round. And that is damaging for people like yourself, because
Yeah.
you're struggling with something that you're not well. You need that support and that help, and you can't, as much as some people in larger bodies struggle to get support with health stuff, because it can, there's a lot in medicine where it can just be assumed that things are down to your weight. I've been incredibly fortunate with my consultant for my rare disease stuff, because my body doesn't like to do simple, that
Mm,
weight doesn't come into it. And
yeah.
he's always been like, no, this is what your body is doing.
Mm,
But conversely, there are people in smaller bodies who are struggling to get the help they need, because people don't listen, because they associate their size and shape with a healthy body. And I think it's just, that's why body neutrality is so important, because it's
yeah.
understanding that we all have this stuff. It's not just unique to people in a larger body. And I hate that we've separated ourselves out into these camps of, what our bodies look like,
Yeah.
because it's just not how it works at all.
No, I find the objectification of the human body to be quite traumatic, where I don't feel safe in my body because everyone's talking about bodies. It just is like finding safeness within my own skin because I'm constantly being assessed based off of like it feels violating to me
It
when
is.
people make a comment about my body.
And it's frustrating, because there is so much more to us.
Yeah.
So when people judge us on that alone, and I come up against it every day, that is what people are judging me on, and doing my job. It's really hard for me to be as well known in what I do, because people look at me and make that judgment off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, they won't take the time to sit down and go, okay, what do you know about this area? What is your expertise? What have you got to say? I was very lucky that the event I spoke at, well, I say lucky, not lucky, I worked hard for it. But the event I spoke at, they want to change the game. They want people to understand. And it was fantastic, because even looking out in the audience, there were people from 0 to 90, and, all shapes and sizes. And you're like, yes, this is what it is, because health is universal.
Yeah.
We all have health. We all need to be, fit and well in ourselves. We all deserve that. And yet we're teaching people that they don't deserve that as much, or they're not as worthy of it. And I think we need to change that narrative, and
I
just,
love changing the narrative, and I thank you for changing the narrative. For the people that don't know what you do and like, I wonder what she does. Can you explain to them what do you do?
I just bum around the house with my dog now.
Yes. Here I go, changing the narrative backwards.
I this is the interesting thing. So I took a year out. Well, it's almost 18 months now over the last year, because I was going through quite a tough time behind the scenes. So I haven't coached directly, but I will be relaunching again in September. But in the meantime, I do have a free community that people can join to build their confidence in the fitness space. And by that, I don't just mean a gym either, because spoiler alert, you don't actually have to go to a gym to
Mhm.
do fitness. You can do whatever makes you happy. If you like walking and that's it, that's fine. You can do that.
Yeah.
And you can make that harder for yourself over time. But the fitness industry don't tell people this.
Yeah, interesting.
Some
Yeah.
didn't, you got to go to the gym. So I coach people around fitness without a focus on the scales, because the scales are just, they're for middle-aged men who like to go fishing and know how
Mm.
much the fish weighed. That's
Yeah,
what they,
there you go. Love it.
then they can put their pictures on dating apps. Then that
Mhm.
works.
It won't work, guys. It will not work, but you can continue to put them there.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
for it.
But yeah, it's and I work around that, and it's about just empowering people to see their worth and see their value. So I'm not there dictating, this is what I did, so here's what you need to do. I actually sit down and I'm like, okay, who are you? Like, get to know yourself. What is your relationship with yourself? What are your stumbling blocks? And what is going to make you happy ongoing? How are you going to make you happy ongoing to kind of achieve this for the rest of your life? So it's a bit different. And so it has been hard going, getting people to kind of understand and buy into that. But one thing with me is I don't really give up. If I know something
Yeah.
is a thing that we should be doing, I'm not going to give up on it. So yeah, and that's kind of me. And I also do still paint behind the scenes. So when I, have gone through stuff in that. So as a child, I loved to paint, but I was kind of stopped from painting as such, because you shouldn't be too good at stuff, and you should be academic, not creative.
Yes. Yes, you
Yes,
should.
be
You
very
should
serious.
absolutely.
I know. And so I gave it up, and then just as all of this, a few years before I got into fitness, I was going through a really rough time. I'd been diagnosed with PTSD, which wasn't a shock after my childhood. It was a shock, it came along almost 20 years after my childhood had ended, but
Mm,
sometimes these things wait around till the right time. And I got back into painting as part of that, and it turns out I'm still all right at it.
nice.
So I also do paint mostly dogs now.
Awesome.
I don't paint humans because you're all too easily offended.
It's true.
Um,
Accurate. I
and I
don't I
have
don't I don't yeah, dude, I
every
only have photos of dogs and cows actually
yeah,
around. Yeah,
there we go.
trees.
But yeah, so I paint dogs. I haven't found a dog that's disappointed in my work as yet.
Yeah, nice.
But that's kind of, for me, it's really important to recognize, and this goes to, I'm saying it because it goes to the importance of being yourself. I am someone who's experienced stuff in life that was incredibly difficult, and managing that is going to be a lifelong thing. And I don't mean that in the terms of I'm broken, or it's, I'm going to need fixing forevermore. It's just that it's impacted me as a human being, and it's something that I'm mindful of. So it's really important for me to do something creative as well as do what I'm passionate about, because I need that balance of throwing my energy into creating change for others, but also doing the bit that really does stuff for me too. So kind of do the two alongside each other.
Is there anywhere that we can see these beautiful paintings of yours?
Yes. Do you want? I've got one under the table. Do you want to
I
have a
would
look?
love you to share it. Yes, please.
I'm just going to disappear under the table for a moment. I was just thinking, oh, I can tell you, I have got an Instagram and stuff like that. However,
Yes. I'm
I've
gonna make
actually got
sure we
some images.
share your
So
Instagram too.
there's
Wow, that's amazing. That's
um,
incredible.
where have we got? There's a Boston Terrier.
Oh my goodness.
We've got the old Shiba Inu,
Oh, I have a Shiba
very
Inu. Oh, he
happy.
looks so cute. That just makes me so happy looking at that one.
We've got a Malamute. And
Wow,
this is my
amazing.
thing. I like to paint them with real emotions in
Yeah,
them, 'cause a lot of people don't paint animals with emotion.
yeah.
This Basset Hound is me most days.
I love it. I
So
love it.
yeah, and this pug is probably people looking at me after I've said something
Oh, that's
as
so
always.
funny. I love it.
So yeah, so I do have an Instagram for them, but it's like a very tiny thing, and I kind of should post on it more often and all the rest of it. But as humans, I think we're like pieces of art. We start out as this little sketch of stuff, and you don't quite know what it's going to be. And then over time, stuff gets added to it. Sometimes it'll look like a 5-year-old's been at it with a paintbrush, and you'll think, oh my God. And then as things come together, you'll see something beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's that to me, that's my understanding of us as humans, is that that's kind of our process.
Yeah, and even if like I suck at art, good, right? I've actually enjoyed
No
hobbies
one
that
sucks at
I
art.
like suck actually, and to suck and just keep doing it for the enjoyment. When I was a kid, I quit all the sports where I wasn't going to be like a WNBA player or a professional soccer player. Wasn't going to be in the Olympics for my marathoning. Like I was just cutting everything down because I couldn't be the best, and I did it in my professional life. And like even on social media now, embracing the learning process and the journey and changing the reason why we post stuff, right? Because I find this conversation to be extremely meaningful and impactful. I'm going to share it because I know so many people are going to be benefiting, and I love the heck out of you. I feel like we've known each other our whole life, right? And like to cherish this time with you, like that's all. I've already feel like I won. You're giving me this huge gift and honor, and now I get to share it. I can't wait to
But
share it
the
because
best, but you just said there, you stopped doing stuff because you weren't going to be the best at it. My one piece of advice to people is the best thing you can be, particularly in sport, is shit.
yeah,
Because no one expects anything of
yeah,
you.
I
You
love
can
it.
go into it and you can enjoy it every time you do it, because no one is there going, I need you to do that within X number of minutes or seconds. I need you
Mm,
to have lifted that amount or done that distance. Actually, you get to go in and go, how am I going to do this and make me happy? But also, you get to improve loads. Whereas if you're good at it already, the pressure is so much. So embrace the stuff you're shit at, because it's the
mhm.
stuff you probably enjoy more.
Yeah.
Like,
So
no pressure.
whoever wants to submit, what are they giving them permission to be shit at down in the comments? Love to hear. What are you going to give
Yes,
yourself? What
absolutely.
are you giving yourself permission to be shit at something right now? Or are you
Yeah,
considering? Yeah. What is that?
yeah.
Because your art's not shit. So you can't include that. It's actually quite amazing. So don't you dare say that.
I am giving myself permission to be shit at being social. So I've
Mm,
always forced myself to like do all the stuff. And since January time, I have been a little hermit a lot of the time. I go out to my chow chow meets and I've done a little bit of work, but a lot of the time I'm just kind of in my little hovel. And it's not that I'm hiding away from the world, absolutely not. I'm actually having the best time.
mm,
I've grown flowers. I'm such an old lady. I've grown flowers. I've like done
beautiful.
stuff that makes me happy. So yeah, just give yourself permission. If you don't like being social and other people will think you're shit because you're not social, do it.
Yeah.
What does it matter? Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day. But yeah, I've given myself permission this year to be imperfect,
Mm,
to just be me. And that is, to willfully just embrace the fact that I'm not going to get everything right.
yeah.
It doesn't matter if I don't. It's all
That's
right.
it's just
Didn't launch in March, doesn't matter. Under no pressure to suddenly launch it because now he's died and I must get on with it. Gonna launch it when it feels right for me.
beautiful.
But just let yourself do the things. You're only here once, and that doesn't mean you've got to rush.
I love all of these. There's so many takeaways. So people have to rewatch it to get some more takeaways. I don't know if there's gonna be I know from you there's gonna be like a million different things that you can say here, but what would be one last takeaway you wanna share with the
Oh,
audience?
oh God. I know what it is actually.
Okay.
I would just tell anyone listening that as much as you don't believe this, you are enough. You just don't know it. Because I think that is the thing that drives a lot of us down these paths of eating disorders, not
Mhm.
loving ourselves as we are, body image, all the rest is that we don't feel that we're enough. You are enough, you just don't know it yet.
Ironically, the book that I will share that I'm reading down below is Never Enough. So I'll share it. It does talk a lot about eating disorders in it. So I'm
Yeah,
going to share it. Thank you for that takeaway. And where you said your Instagram, I'll make sure to put that down below. But where can
yeah.
people find you for your coaching and all the other things that you're
So
doing?
Instagram is the main place to have a look for me because there'll be links on there to
Perfect.
everything. Yeah. Otherwise, I just get I'm getting old now, so keep it in one place, and then I can't get confused about where stuff is.
Well, that's relatable. So I'll make sure I'm going to put your Instagram handle down below. I did find you there. I did check all your links and join some other places that you are through that. So I'll attest it does work. You do find her. If you go to Instagram, you'll find her links. So thank you, Bond. It's been so delightful to have this conversation with you.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
And again, to our audience, to your comments, your thoughts, your reflections, your questions down below. Of course, Bond, I'd love to have you on a million different times. So if they have comments
I'll be back.
straight for you, make sure to put them down below. And thanks for being
Absolutely.
in here, everyone. Until next time.